Hi, it's Timothy Carlson here. I love a good horror movie, and when horror movies become classics, of course, there's going to be the inevitable remakes. And in 2009, we actually got one of those remakes in the form of Friday the 13th. This was a new take on the old tale of Jason Voorhees. This time around, not so much a remake of the original film, but more sort of a reimagining of the first 4 or so movies in the series. So I'm going to unbox this 4K from Arrow Video and share my opinions. There's our cover art. This is the first 4K release of the film. For years, only the older Blu-ray was available. Back cover's got all the descriptions of the films and bonus features. Under the slipcover, we actually have reversible art. I reversed it. That's more akin to the poster art that would have been around the time the movie came out. First of all, we actually have a Crystal Lake postcard. I mean, that's a nice little vintage style extra. We get a poster in here. On this side, we have Arrow Video's art for the film. And on this side, we have the vintage style poster art. As usual, there's also an ad for Arrow Video's streaming service. And there's an ad for New Fist of Fury, an old martial arts movie on the back there. And we get a pretty nice sized booklet, and it's done in the style of a Crystal Lake newspaper. So that looks pretty cool. Got a list of the cast and crew there, as well as some photographs from the film. And some pretty nice essays from film critics and historians. Some info on the restoration there. We then have the actual discs themselves. This is a 2-disc set. Again, this is 4K only. It does not include Blu-ray discs, as is usually Arrow Video's policy. Disc 1 has the theatrical cut of the movie, plus the bulk of the bonus features. Disc 2 has the killer cut, which is sort of the extended unrated cut of the movie. And it has an additional commentary track as well. In 2003, director Marcus Nispel made a lasting impression on horror fans with his box office topping remake, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. 6 years later, he turned his camera to another slasher icon, none other than the hulking masked killer Jason Voorhees, in his gore-soaked remake of Friday the 13th. A group of oblivious teenagers choose Crystal Lake as the destination for a weekend getaway. Among them, the young Clay Miller is not looking for fun and frolics, but for his sister Whitney, who disappeared around the lake 6 weeks earlier. The trip turns into a waking nightmare as the bloodthirsty Jason emerges from the shadows, wielding a deadly machete and out for blood. Cut off from civilization, these youths discover too late that Crystal Lake bears the scars of a violent past as they uncover the terrifying events that spurred the masked killer's quest for violent vengeance. Nispel's top direction and the stunning cinematography by Daniel Pearl, whose credits include the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre as well as the remake, bring a fresh and terrifying new perspective to the infamous hockey-masked maniac, sure to bring chills and thrills to even hardened horror veterans. Unfortunately, the 2009 version of Friday the 13th was not the success that the studios, the filmmakers, and the crew were hoping for, so it never got any sequels. And in fact, this 2009 film is the most recent cinematic appearance of Jason Voorhees. And that is a shame. The film is certainly not perfect and has its problems, but I do think it's better than people gave it credit for. I mean, I don't know that I've seen Jason Voorhees ever being more hulking, more menacing, more outright violent than he is in this film. And this movie actually, again, tries to be sort of a reimagining of the original first 4 films or so. In the original franchise, for example, Jason Voorhees didn't even become the killer until the second film. In the first movie, his mother is the killer, something that's alluded to in the opening scenes of this film. And he didn't even get his signature hockey mask until the third movie. But this time around, we sort of get a fat-free version where we get all the lore, but by the end of the movie, of course, he is the hockey mask-wearing maniac that we've all come to know and love. And of course, this guy brings the violence, and he brings it in droves when the time comes. The movie does get somewhat creative with the kills. It's not just Jason hacking people up with a machete. I'll give credit to the crew for that. There's also sort of a false teaser opening of sorts, introducing the one group of teenagers, but then we ultimately end up following another one. I won't get too into details there, but that was kind of a nice, unexpected twist that I do like that the crew put on this particular take on the film. The cinematography and production values here are actually very well done. I mean, The film itself is a bit of a mixed bag. Probably the biggest weakness is it really fails to create any sympathetic or interesting human characters. There's always this stigma that remakes will never be as good as the original, and I think a lot of that really hurt the film on its release as well. Again, the characters here, there's not a whole lot of them I really found myself caring for. A few of them did make me laugh a few times, the ones that were more intended to be comic relief. But ultimately, when Jason goes on his rampage, I didn't really feel a whole lot of sympathy for most of his victims. At the end of the day, it's a solid horror remake. I'm not going to put this on the list of greatest horror remakes by any means, but I think it is better than people give it credit for being. And I think with the release of Arrow's 4K, that certainly merits a second look. For years and years, that old, really early Blu-ray disc was the only release of Friday the 13th on a modern format, and it was not a terrible looking disc, but it did look very dated. I'm happy to say that Arrow has finally given this film a new master, and the addition of HDR really works wonders. Needless to say, a film in the Friday the 13th franchise has a lot of scenes set in dark places and at night, so increased shadow detail from HDR really gets a nice push here. The movie does retain a pretty natural look throughout, and I'm happy to say that I don't really have any major issues with the picture quality here. Again, not exactly reference quality. The movie's always had something of a drab color palette, probably by design, but it is the best looking version of this film to date, and certainly blows the older Blu-ray out of the water. For bonus features, we get several commentary tracks for both cuts of the movie. Again, we do get the shorter theatrical R-rated cut, but then we get that extended killer cut that has some, additional scenes of violence and nudity. But we do get some newly recorded featurettes, as well as most of the vintage featurettes from the earlier Blu-rays. So it's a pretty nice package. Certainly a better package than a movie like this has any right to get. And if you are a fan, this is certainly worth picking up. I will say this is an instance of try before you buy, because, again, the film did get a mixed reception. You should probably see if it's for you before you lay down the cash for Arrow Video's release. That said, I can easily give this one a recommendation. Certainly not my favorite film in the Friday the 13th franchise, but Arrow's certainly done right by this one, and this package gets top marks. How about you? Do you like the Friday the 13th franchise? What did you think of this remake? Did you get the 4K from Arrow yet? Comment down below and let me know what you think. Also, remember to subscribe to this channel for more content. I'm always posting new videos. And make sure you give this one a like if you found it helpful. I'm Taylor T. Carlson. I'll see you next time.